Buddy, today is Monday the 23rd, and we're doing a live stream to talk about the quote investments in Ragnarok. That is the title of my newest short paper, Investments in Ragnarok. Now, most of you who are watching this channel already know about the other paper on the origins of religions, which is now pretty much complete. It's been cited. I'm probably going to add some more diagrams and get the paper overall to 48 pages. However, this, in terms of citations, that paper is complete. Investment in Ragnarok, of course, was a research into how much money here in the West we've been spending on the major things. I haven't gone and looked at every single possible area of end of the world media, but I looked it up, and then I also compared that with basically government spending on world-ending weapons. And I think that you'll find the research really interesting and the topic really interesting. It's only a two-page paper in terms of the prose, and then there's some other figures and then the link to the data. So if you go to the EU Gateway, and later on when I edit this video, I will put the link in, but if you go to the EU Gateway and just type in investments in Ragnarok, just like the title of this video, you will find that paper. Again, I definitely think if you haven't looked into the EPEMC, read that paper or the on the origins of religions. So today is all about that kind of thing. I'm not the whole paper, because that would take more than an hour or so to do. A quick reminder, tonight is the next EU show on Catherine Kaufman's channel. That's on Facebook Live and Instagram. And then, of course, later on it gets uploaded to YouTube, and then I back it up on this channel. And so there's that. And I also want to give a shout out to the channel Megalithomania. If you haven't subscribed to Megalithomania, do so. They are probably the best at talking about Göbekli Tepe and following Graham Hancock and Andrew Collins and Robert Schoch as they go and explore. One of the newest videos is the one on Derinkuyu. For those who don't know, Derinkuyu is an entire underground city that dates back to probably about 10,000 BC. And so we're talking about right at the end of the Younger Dryas period, when there was another kind of cataclysm. Could it have possibly ended the Tepe period? That's what's in my On the Origins of Religion. In the timeline section in part 1, there's an entire extended timeline, and that's what I say is that it ended the Tepe period. So Derinkuyu, for those who don't know, was discovered. Basically, a guy was renovating his house and put a hammer through a wall, and boom, opened it up into this cave system. He thought it was a natural cave and went to the authorities, and it turned out to be like 12 floors of man-made marble. That is not a religious temple, all right? It's a survival thing. You see dolems and underground cities all around the world. There's another site with an underground city in the area, in the Turkey and Iran area, so it is definitely not a temple, okay? When you go and you see it, it's people were living in this thing. So I had mentioned I was going to talk about Yellowstone, and I didn't make the video, but suffice it to say I did actually look at the map, and what I found is that Yellowstone itself doesn't have a lot of signs of electrical arc machining. So good news, bad news. The good news being that we don't have any celestial bodies other than the moon close to us that would set it off if it was electrically created through some kind of E-field heating from below. Bad news being, if it is tectonic driven and to do with mantle movement and convection inside, that appears to still be there. But I did discover that the Black Hills near to Devil's Tower on the other side of the state of Wyoming, and the Black Hills are in South Dakota, that those two have almost assuredly an electrical relationship, that was electric geology formed. When you go to the Origins paper, at the bottom of Appendix B, there is a link to EU geology and the formation of mountains. Find that link and watch Andrew Hall, because then you can understand what I'm looking for when I look at that. And the interesting thing is, when we look at impact, common impact, everybody's talking about the Hudson Bay impact and the Younger Dryas event. Well, I've looked at the Hudson Bay craters. They do not look like they were caused by cometary impact, and we have two sites here in Kentucky these two sites in Kentucky are oblique impact strikes. So Jeptha Knob and Middlesboro. Both of those are analyzed in my PowerPoint presentation, which is also linked in the On the Origins paper, or for members of akha.us for the ancientkentucky.com. There is a members only section if you have Gmail, and in there my presentation is presented, and you can see my analysis on that. So I'm sorry if the connection drops in and out. I apologize. There might be something going on in terms of the connection here. Okay, so we've talked about impact sites. We talked about Yellowstone. I've talked about my papers. Talked about megalithmy. Okay, magnetism. So I wanted to demonstrate this. Let's see if I can find my magnets. I have they're on my desk. I keep them. You know, it's kind of weird, but I keep these really nice, strong magnets. And I want to demonstrate, okay, the difference between, so there's this idea that there are so-called magnetic bubbles and magnetic reconnection out there, and the thing is there's really no such thing as either of those things. So let's talk about those really fast. And tonight's episode on Catherine's channel will be science, although it won't be as much demonstration as this. So when I have two magnets far away like this, they basically emanate kind of a double bell LaPointe shaped. There's actually a galaxy that, or a supernova, I think it's 187A, that shows this double bell shape. But bear in mind, it's actually two bulbs on the end, and so there's a bulb on this end and a bulb on this end. You probably know it more like, looks like almost like a figure eight. But when you get sufficiently away from the magnet, actually those field lines that, remember, aren't actually lines. There's nothing there, right? So there's no line there. That's just where the concentrations of magnetic flux cause the iron filings to line up. But it's arbitrary, right? They could be closer, they could be further away. Their concentration tells you how strong it is, therefore the increased flux. Now, when they're far away, that's the shape they have. And their interactions with each other are exactly thus, with the exception of a little bit of strength flowing from the north to the south and the south to the north. Now, as they move closer, the fields, there will be compression on the opposition and attraction on the others, and the field lines will start to bend. Now, as they start to bend, that shape tends to go away, and it creates what appears to be kind of like a bubble. And those field lines, if you were tracking them with the computer, will like suddenly move and then snap back into place with each other. Like they'll move out, and then on the other side, then they'll go, and then boom, they look like, but that's not actually what's happening, right? There's no field lines reconnecting. All that's happening is you're changing the so-called flux field concentration, right? It's sort of like charge density, but instead of charge, it's magnetism. And ultimately, if you go to the Electric Universe Gateway, you pull up, do a search, Hawkins Electrical Guide. You read what it says about electricity. This was written in 1917. It's basically on point. No one knows exactly what electricity is. However, from what we can tell, it and magnetism are the same thing. It's not that there's one and then the other, right? It's that they are both electricity. It's just that magnetism is expressing itself differently. Perhaps it's 90 degrees out of phase. There's a lot of interpretations. But when they're getting closer together, there is a change of density to where now you have an entire magnetic field, and there is an overall decrease in concentration between the two. Right? So you can call it a magnetic hole. It's not a real hole at all. So when these get sufficiently close to each other, then they start to have a observable effect upon one another. And it has to do with the square, the magnetic field decreasing by the square. So the effect appears to go up exponentially, or what we call geometrically. And so that effect suddenly becomes a lot stronger. And that brings us to the point that I was making on the Suspicious Observer channel today, which is that we don't really know. If you've got hot Jupiters going around, again, you can go to the EU Gateway and you can search a planet darker than charcoal, if you've got hot Jupiters going around that are exhibiting black body properties, probably because they're made of liquid metallic hydrogen, but they're not in glow mode because their corona is not currently on, because there's not enough charge density to ignite the body, then we wouldn't know, especially if one's moving at 20,000 kilometers a second or more, if there's one coming towards the Earth. And I'm not trying to scare anybody. I'm just saying that it's not something that we would notice until it was it would be pretty close to us by the time it got there. And I want to point out that the Earth's tilt is already trying to change because of the sun's influence. We're changing faster than Mars because we have a larger mass. So, we're just kind of uprighting even quicker because the influence of the sun on us is so strong. And the influence of Jupiter and Saturn on us is almost gone. And so, the planet's gyroscopic angular momentum is no longer able to keep it there forever, and we're going to end up being righted upright, and as we go around the sun in its plane. So currently we're at like 23 degrees declination. Well, that's slowly changing. And so as that changes, we are going to experience climate change. We are going to experience, weather effects. We are going to experience El Niños and La Niñas, and sudden changes in the degree of the vortices, and the power of the vortices might go up in some places, might go down in other places. This change is happening all the time. Just bear that in mind when you see reports by Chicken Littles about the skies falling and this and that. The entire solar circuit is changing right now, and the magnetosphere is changing. It's going down, and it's going down probably because there's some kind of body, whether it's a comet or something else. It's constantly changing the field. We don't know what it is. Anybody who says that they know what it is, or that they know it's not happening, they don't know. All right, we just had a comet, I don't know if you know, or an asteroid, whiz by us yesterday at 6 p.m. within the distance, and this is the second one coming from that angle in 1 week. And no one knew about these things until they're going right by. If you go to Wikipedia and you look up asteroid near misses to the Earth, you're going to see, sorry, there's a bit of a bad connection here, it's spotty for some reason. So you see that it's not as clear as it's not like NASA knows 100% what's going to happen. Okay, so I rewatched Deep Impact, and I rewatched Dante's Peak. Dante's Peak is better for the science. Deep Impact was better than Armageddon for the science. So if you're interested in these kinds of things, watch those two movies rather than Armageddon or Volcano. Right? These are much less sensationalist films, although they are still sensational. Still a lot of Hollywood stuff. But, we invest a lot of money into disasters and a lot of money into Armageddon and Ragnarok. In fact, of course, there was a huge Thor movie about Ragnarok last year. So big money is still in it. And why? Because we are so interested in what happened in the past. And we're so caught up in it. You would not believe, until you pull up the paper, how many trillions of dollars just the U.S. has spent in into the world weaponry and anti-missile defense. It is an inordinate amount of money that comes from a deep-seated trauma that all of humanity feels. And until we address that, we're probably going to continue to waste a lot of resources and money in order to basically cathartically expel this. The Star Wars stuff and the Mahabharata and all the Marvel and DC, it hasn't gotten it out of us yet, because this is what Carl Jung or Velikovsky would say, is that the archetypes or the imagery that still remains is now culturally passed along. And we just haven't dealt with that yet. And until we do, we're probably going to continue to spend a lot of money on end-of-the-world material and weapons and media until we do deal with it. And I feel it's worth investing. So read the paper. If you disagree, or if you have something to say about the paper, please comment below in the live feed. Once it's finished, it'll give you the ability to comment below. And I hope you had. I'm sorry about that connection. Must be the weather, but at least at this time now it's working. So we're going to try and do more live streams now that the clinic is getting a better connection. Hopefully on a day when the weather is a little bit better, it'll go a little smoother. Hope you have a good one. Like, share, subscribe. Again, leave me your comments below, and I will try and post the links. And I hope you're able to watch Catherine's show tonight. See you later.